whenever possible, listen to your gut. And also unpack that feeling and triangulate it with other evidence. But the first thing is don't forget to listen to it first and to just slow down and identify that.
It really does give me great pleasure to introduce to you Kelly Armitage, who's just completed 12 years as the elementary school principal at the International School Bangkok. Previously, she worked as a curriculum coordinator and a teacher at Escuela Campo Alegre in Caracas, Venezuela, and she's done lots of other things herself that I'm not going to mention them all here. Maybe she'll talk a little bit about those. She is herself a graduate of the PTC, and she's been teaching with the PTC for a long time. And I was starting to list all the courses that she has taught with us. And then I decided to say that she's taught everything but leadership and team dynamics. So that means that she has indeed been a facilitator on curriculum, on instructional supervision. Most recently, that's been her major contribution to the PTC, on our effective principal course, et cetera, many. And in the last few years, we've been relying on Kelly to help us with our teacher leader 2-day programs that we run, particularly in this case, in Bangkok. I want to remind all of you that you're muted and that you are encouraged to keep your video on to see each other. And Kelly, we're ready for your wisdom today.
Great. Thank you, Bambi, for those words. And good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I just wanted to start out by saying how much I'm missing PTC right now. And I know many of you are. It just feels strange. My summer feels different for a variety of reasons, but not being at the PTC right now, especially this week, is really challenging. I miss that professional growth. I miss that networking that we all get when we're together. But I do want to thank Bambi and Zach and Sky and everybody else who have put together these opportunities for us, because I've been watching them and learning along with you all, and it's just been fabulous. There's some amazing leaders out there and just incredible pearls of wisdom. So I really thank PTC for putting those out there, and I'm happy to add to them. Really glad to be a part of this. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So I chose this particular pearl image to start out with because these pearls have secondary pearls coming off and sometimes third and fourth. And I think this represents PTC because the network grows and the ideas grow and the support grows, and there's really nothing like it out there. So I really liked how this was just growing all these different pearls. And I wanted to give a pearl today about listening to your gut and using intuitive intelligence in leadership. I also stumbled on this image in my search and thought it was appropriate. In fact, I might be ordering one of these, who knows? So listening to your gut, sometimes it's called a hunch or a gut feeling, an inner voice, a sixth sense, intuition perhaps. But I've been reading some articles and some books around intuitive intelligence, and that term really appealed to me, but I'm talking about all those different ideas when we think about this pearl. So why this pearl? Why did I choose this? Well, Bambi did say that, you know, that a lot of different pearls on different topics have been given, but this is something that is really important to me. I've had the privilege of being a mentor to a lot of growing leaders, aspiring leaders, and even you know, colleagues that have been in it quite a long time. I've also been really fortunate to have ongoing mentorship for me by exceptional leaders, including Bambi. And many times when I'm either coaching or mentoring, people have asked me to give a piece of advice in a nutshell, like what's the one thing you could tell me? What's the one thing that you might give that will help me? It's so difficult to pick one thing. There's so many out there, but I find that I often come to this when I give a nutshell, or an oyster as the case might be, but to listen to your gut. because I know that when I don't do that, I often reflect later and I recognize that I pushed away that kind of relentless niggling, nagging feeling. And then later the decision doesn't feel right. And then upon reflection, I discovered that there was probably a better path that was more aligned to what my gut was telling me. So I was thinking about some examples because there are many of them. And I have two examples that I want to share. And the first of these examples are when I didn't listen to my gut, and it was around a hiring decision. So I really believe in a thorough process for hiring, and I've always involved teachers, and we use a process with a committee, and I believe that insight from teachers is critical in hiring. So one time, the committee felt really strongly that we should hire a certain candidate. We had 2 lengthy interviews, lots of dialogue around it. Our questions were great. Our process was really good. And the committee felt very strongly about a certain candidate and wanted to hire, but my gut told me otherwise. I couldn't pinpoint it. I kind of pushed it away, but I knew that this teacher committee had great success and that the protocol was sound and the process was sound, and the feeling kept coming back to me, but I pushed it away again. Well, it turned out to not be a great fit, and it was pretty obvious shortly after employment started. So that was one thing I thought about in terms of when I didn't listen to my gut. So another time, I was thinking about when I did listen to a specific time where my gut was telling me something over and over. Our leadership team was working with a consultant and making some decisions around assessment. And we were in a group of leaders creating an action plan around that. And one specific assessment protocol and process that we were planning and going ahead with just didn't feel right, especially to younger learners to me. But I didn't really have the research or the data, the specific reasons why I felt like that. I couldn't really formulate and communicate the why. But I decided to be bold. I was listening to Lee's Pearl the other day, and he was talking about some bold statements. And so I just was courageous at the time and said, this just doesn't feel right in my gut. So I recommend taking a pause, and I'm not sure why, but let's pause and come back to this. And it was really kind of going against what the majority felt and the consultant. But in doing this, it allowed myself and others to really process what was happening, to really think about it, to do some research about it. And in the end, we went in a different direction, which turned out to be a better path, and it was more aligned with what we valued about assessment. So those are 2 specific times that I was thinking about when I've used this and when I've not used this and what happened. Several years ago, this was so important to me that I started to put this and identify it on my professional goals. And when meeting with my head of school and talking about my goals, I would put down, listen to my gut more often. So when I'm coaching other leaders, I often see this missing sometimes with their decision-making process, or that there's not enough focus on thinking about that intuitive intelligence or that gut. So that's why I chose this pearl. And those of you who know me know that I love to be a scientific thinker, that learning data is really, really important to me. One of the things that I am most proud about is that a team and myself implemented a very robust data-driven dialogue process at ISB. I present webinars on the topic, and my teammates and I have really cultivated a culture of not only collecting and analyzing and dialoguing about student learning data, but acting on it and evaluating and monitoring our data and action plans for learning. This data-driven dialogue is very important to me. So data is something that I believe strongly in, and it's in premises and standards throughout the PTC. I'm also adaptive schools trainer, and I strongly support the providing data as one of the norms of the 7 norms of collaboration. So it's a big part of who I am, and I really wanted to understand more about how are these hunches and these gut feelings connected to data, or what's the science behind this? And while I really don't understand in detail all of the specifics about it, I have done quite a bit of reading, and it's been really interesting. And one of my favorite authors, and I know that you are all familiar with him too, is Malcolm Gladwell. A lot of you might know him from Outliers or The Tipping Point. But when I read Blink, it really resonated with me. It talks about the decisions that we make in the blink of an eye, and why those decisions can be good ones. He talks about thin slicing, and thin slicing refers to the ability of our unconscious to find patterns in situations and behaviors based on very narrow slices of experience. And he talks about how our brains can filter out the irrelevant data in that thin slicing. So these decisions and judgments are quite sophisticated and efficient. So careful attention to the details of a thin slice, even for a second or two, can tell us a great deal. So Malcolm explains that many professions rely on this kind of intuition or this gut feeling, this blink. In basketball, the player who can take in and comprehend all that's happening around him or her is said to have court sense. In the military, brilliant generals are said to possess the power of the glance. So this is all from Malcolm. When people identify birds, so birders that do this as a passion, they can identify a bird from very far away just by knowing the bird's essence, and that's enough. So a lot of science says that, we need a lot of information, but instead Malcolm argues that our subconscious is like a supercomputer, and they can process the answers we need in less than 2 seconds using that thin slice of data. So that was interesting, and it really aligned with kind of how I was feeling about this gut feeling and intuitive intelligence. So as I kept reading and learning and talking to other leaders about it, what surfaced was that decisions that need to be made when there's very little track record or very little history about the context really needs to rely on this intuitive intelligence, and that makes sense, and how critical it is right now. So as we're preparing for things that we don't have the context for, we don't have the research base, we're in rapidly changing environments, so we have to rely on our intuition, which is based on all of those things, to make decisions. And ambiguous times call on this intuitive intelligence. So we're in them right now. According to leadership coach and author of The Leadership Gap, Lolly Daskal, she says that our intuition is the accumulation of all the experiences we have. It's the amalgam of all the books that we have read. It's the combination of all the people we've met and the facts and data we collected. So our brains can do amazing things with this data and all of our experiences in the blink of an eye. I'm sure you're familiar with so many studies that say that teachers and administrators make 1,000 decisions a day. I've heard 1,500 decisions a day. There's not time to do all the data collecting and using the protocols and having the dialogues with groups for all of them. Of course, that's really important for many decisions, but we on a daily basis are making these split decisions very, very quickly. And when we think about where we want to be in those quadrants, like Covey's quadrants, and we want to be in that quadrant too, but we're often all over the place making these decisions. And this intuitive intelligence is critical to have. So can we get better at this? The reading says that we can, and that we can get better at reading our gut feelings and actually acting on them. So some of the things that I've kind of pulled out from various sources and talking to people, and what I've done myself is, first of all, if we can get better at them, one of the things we need to do is to pay attention to them. And writing down these gut feelings, trying to pinpoint what these feelings are and to give them a name. One idea is to reflect on your day in the evenings and try to pinpoint when you felt that niggle, that inner voice, and around what that was during the day. And try to identify some patterns of what your gut is telling you around certain things. What data do you have about this topic or decision? So of course, we don't want to only go with our intuition. We want to look at explicit data when we can. And is there more that you can gather? Classroom visits, talking with students, research, speaking with others, how are they feeling about it and why? What are others' guts telling them? And also slow down. This is one of the things that is critical. slow down those split decisions so that you can read your gut and think about why it's telling you that. Try to pinpoint what it is that's making you uneasy. I wanted to bring out a little warning about this though, especially as I've been doing quite a bit of reading around bias. Right now I'm in a online book group, which I'm loving, around white fragility right now. And I know that we're all doing quite a bit of reading around racism and different issues that are in social injustice. And we know that we all have biases and implicit bias, and thinking about what that means in terms of your gut feelings. And it's just a little warning that actually it's not just with intuitive intelligence, it's with all of our processes that we use to make decisions. Is just think about what are the biases there, and then make sure that we try to get diverse perspectives when we are making these decisions. So that's really, really important. Just wanted to put that out there as a little warning as we think about this. So in summary, my pearl for you today is that whenever possible, listen to your gut, and also unpack that feeling and triangulate it with other evidence. But the first thing is don't forget to listen to it first and to just slow down and identify that. So that's my pearl.
So helpful, Kelly, really, and we'll have a couple of questions here. How, for example, I'm thinking of some of you who may be new to the principalship, or you're just about to enter one, or, and you don't have the 12 years of experience or 5 years or 2. So can you talk a little bit about how can we help ourselves understand the difference between sort of gut and inexperience? In other words, I've never done anything like this before at all. And, how can I sort of identify the difference between I don't really know what I'm doing because I've never been here before?
Yeah, no, it's true. And experience keeps adding to, as Malcolm Gladwell says, just keeps adding to that, and it helps us with that. I would say don't trust your gut, but definitely listen to your gut, because you as a new leader have so many experiences that you can draw on. And being a teacher, being leaders in other areas, all of that is really important. Talking to students, it's critical. So doing some of those things, but really from early on, listening to that gut feeling that you have, because it's based on something. Mm-hmm. And then of course, as I mentioned, talking to others and getting that triangulation of data is really critical. But start early to really valuing that and honoring that as a part of decision-making and a part of your intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that for any of you who know Kelly, she is sort of the data queen. So this, for her to be telling you or having you think about, go with your gut. So I appreciate it very much that you put that piece of you into it, because, knowing you for so many years and many conversations that we've had together and you had with all of our PTC participants about how do you do that, and I think in part maybe the slowing down is that it's, and not forgetting those tools that you have already put together that form that when I've slowed down, what am I looking at, sort of thing. Another statement here is about, so what's the role of, we talk about sort of leading by principle, PLE, all right? And what do you think about the notion of that's always in the backdrop and referring back to that when your gut reaction is coming, like what principle is behind this? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it actually touches on many, because it depends on what you're doing when your gut's telling you that, and how you can look at that in terms of, I'm thinking about our jobs as principals PAL, looking at the other principle is that making sure that we have a competent, caring teacher in every classroom, for example. And, one of the premises of the, the IS class that I've been teaching, and supervision evaluation is that we do that. And I think that this plays a role in that. I think that this definitely, in your gut when things aren't going right. it's based on a lot of data you're picking up from those classroom visits, from your talks, from conversations that you're having, and from other data. But your gut tells you a lot about that. So that's just one example of thinking about when this can come into play and why that's so important in that principle.
Yeah, so having those principles, LE, PLE, embedded in the way you do things as a leader then you can rely more on that gut. I'm reminded of way back a number of years ago in one of the early PTC years before we had internet, etc. I know I'm sounding like an old person and talking about the olden days, but it's just reminding me that one of the ways that we suggested then that people might, remind themselves of what was the why. We called it a pocket plan. And we said, just write down the guiding principles and put it in your pocket and carry it around with you around the school, so that whenever you did get that niggly feeling, you could kind of reach in there and say, oh, what are those things? Where am I going back to? And where could this be coming from? And I remember also another one based on what you said, that once you've written down those little niggly things and the reasons for them, carry those around too, because it shortens the time up, between the time that you need to make that what appears to be an impulsive decision. It keeps that data close at hand. We have another question here. Can you discuss how you might have used this with students as an important tool for their lives as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know explicitly if we've used this terminology with students, but we do talk with students, and they are collecting their own evidence of their learning in a portfolio way. So whether it's an electronic portfolio like on Seesaw, or whether it's a physical paper portfolio, and along with all of their other data, when they're goal setting and when they're analyzing their growth, a lot of that comes into play around what they know about themselves and how they relate that to their objectives. So that's a great idea, actually, to be more explicit around that terminology with them. But I would say they're using it when they are collecting their body of evidence and setting goals for themselves and showing growth.
Yeah. That would be a good line of thought for us to pursue. How do you become more reliant on your gut? If in fact it is a good leadership strategy, then how do I grow into that? Leon has made not a question, but I'm going to share, if it's okay, Leon, that he says this is one of the reasons why I miss one-to-one teaching, because the gut lets you pick up on the mood and feelings of individual students instantly. And I think that's just really insightful, that you are using that gut with kids if you're in a classroom pretty much every minute when you're making those 1,000 decisions a day. So thank you for that contribution, because I think if there was one thing, if we were to ask people what you're missing in the day-to-day classroom setting, it might not have come out with that word gut, but it would have come out very close to, I'm not in the moment, I'm not in the moment, and I can't triangulate that data because I'm missing a big piece of it, which is just like that interaction. Okay, well, I think let's just take one more here. Well, this is specific, but let's see if it hooks up to you. What would be the most precise tool to assess and give positive feedback to middle and high school students and teachers virtually? So, what are some practical ways that, that sort of gut thing can be done through feedback? What kind of tools are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that probably some type of protocol around coaching. Whether it's cognitive coaching or another type of coaching, and really having it be self-directed. So the questioning around the gut and helping people to listen to it, identify it, and help grow that and triangulate it through a coaching model, I think would be a great tool for people to get better at this, students and adults.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. As always, insightful.